Hey everybody, KC here. So longtime readers of Morning Newsbeat won't be surprised that I was absolutely thrilled this week when I saw that the current edition of The New Yorker has a story that's called The Secret History of Risotto. It's by Anthony Lane. And the thing he writes about is back in 1984, he had a chance to go to Venice with his parents. And he remembers that they went to a restaurant and there, totally unawares of how it would impact him, he had his first taste of risotto. And he writes, off-white, unobtrusive, and modestly freckled with parsley, it was as plain to the eye as it was revolutionary to the palate. Never had I tasted such a thing. The flavor, far from strong, was mysterious and mild. As a young fool recently graduated from college, I neglected to ask how or of what the risotto was made. Instead, I feasted, almost cracking the plate with my scraping, and silently vowed that I would try to recreate such food or a ghost of it, however dissatisfying, for the rest of my life. I would wander the earth, seeking out one risotto after another in search of the ideal. 40 years later, he says, the folly has worsened and the quest goes on. Now, I know exactly how he feels. I remember exactly who introduced me to risotto for the first time. It was a guy named Bob Hughes. And we worked together at the now defunct Supermarket Business magazine. And he made risotto for Mrs. Content Guy and me one night when we went over to his place. And listen, he went on to write novels and he covered the arts for the Wall Street Journal for a while. I haven't seen him in years, but I think about him almost every time I make risotto. He comes to mind. Now, Lane goes on. The good news is that making risotto is a breeze. The fundamental things apply. You melt a bit of butter, saute some chopped onion, add rice, stir it around, add wine, stir, and then add hot stock, ladle by ladle, while you stir and stir again. Remove the pan from the heat, throw in some grated Parmesan and some more butter. Stir, wait, serve, eat. Feel your immortal soul being warmed and suffused with pleasures both rare and immeasurable. Lick the spoon, wash the pan. Done. To me, this is so great, because to me, risotto is like the baseball of foods. The making of risotto takes time and attention, but it also allows for conversation or listening to music, sipping a glass of wine. There's a leisure quality to making risotto that doesn't just result in my being fed. It also feeds my soul. Now, let's be clear, it doesn't do this for everyone. One night I was here making risotto and I was stirring and adding broth and adding wine, and I got a business call, and Mrs. Content Guy was hanging out with me, and I said, would you do me a favor and just stir this for a minute? She said, absolutely. And she stirred it, and she even to this day remembers thinking to herself, well, this isn't so bad. And then 2 minutes went by and she began to think to herself, will he ever get off the phone? She likes to eat my risotto, but stirring it just doesn't feed her soul the same way it feeds mine. So the other thing about risotto is you can put almost anything into it. I love to put lobster and shrimp into mine. My daughter likes to make it with this really spicy chicken. You can also go vegetarian, right? You can put asparagus or mushrooms or peppers or pretty much anything you want. You could also go carnivore. I occasionally like to make a risotto with a short rib that I've actually cooked in the slow cooker for many, many hours. It's unbelievable. The kitchen smells great. Now, risotto, Lane writes, is governed by a set of laws that are rooted in tradition, rich in common sense, and aching to be broken or bent. So, why am I sharing with you? And by the way, in the text version of this, I'll put a link to the New Yorker article. Well, because as we come to the end of 2024 and to the end of Morning Newsbeat on a 5-day-a-week schedule, I've been thinking about the last 23 years and wondering if I could boil down what I think might be the most important lesson I've tried to impart over the past almost quarter century. And I think it comes down to this. Food can be magic. And food stores that really want to differentiate themselves from the competition, especially smaller food stores or smaller companies that need to differentiate themselves from the really big chains that are consolidating and trying to get even bigger. Well, if they want to create a compelling physical existence, to connect to their customers in visceral and vital ways, well, they should embrace and exploit food they sell and the promises that this food can make and deliver on as much as they possibly can. I think it's critically important. It's like a great risotto. It takes time. It takes patience. There are many ingredients that you can put into it that'll make it wonderful. It can fill your stomach. It can fill your heart. It can fill your soul. And it's totally, at the end of the day, worth it. That's what's on my mind. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.